Okay, so let's see. I think if I press that, then I should get something coming through there. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so do say hello when you join so that I know that you're there. Welcome to this week's Monday Moments live stream. Always fairly terrifying. I started a little bit early this week, but if there's anybody there, then just say hi on the text and we'll get going. So what I want to do today is just have a little chat through these aspects of trust and truth in relation to, our connection to everything around us, to the spiritual realms, to the universe, to everything that we can find in that subtle aspect. But before I do, I just want to run through a couple of little bits of housekeeping. I mean, like, obviously, if you're watching this on playback after the live event, do click on, hi, Dan, hi. Click on subscribe and the grey bell icon to get notified every time I do an upload. I try to do about 2 a week, one early in the week, which is usually this sort of live event, and then one later in the week, either on a Thursday or a Friday. Hi, Nancy. Hello. Nice to see you. Fantastic. That's great. Good to join in. Julie. Hello, Julie. Hi. So click on the bell icon if you want to get informed with those. And thanks to all of you who have left a comment over on the community tab. If you go to my channel at the homepage, there's a community tab there. And I occasionally leave like notices like, when I'm going to do the live streams. But also last week I left a question about, what do you guys want from the channel? Hello, Jonathan. Hi, how you doing? Jean-Francois. Wonderful. Bonjour from Canada. Fantastic. Excuse my French accent. So if you nip over to the community tab, you'll see that I've just left a little question there to say, look, can you pop something down? What do you want from the channel? Because I know roughly what, where I want to go with it. But obviously we're here doing this stuff for you guys. And be useful really if you can just let me know what you're looking for particularly. So what I'm going to do is in future, I'm going to do these Monday moments as like series of 8 or so, like that, 8 weeks in a row. Okay. And then I'll probably take a break for a couple of weeks and then 8 more. I'm going to do one more next week, and then I'm going to be off for like the Easter period. So we've got a Monday Moments live stream next week, same time. Denise, hello there. Hi, Jonathan. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, bless. God forgive you. Okay. So we'll do an 8-week session, and then we'll break for the Easter, and then we'll come back. And when we come back, what I hope to be able to do is to have some kind of structure for you so that we can follow some progress through from one live stream to the next. Now, for those of you that haven't been kind of attached to these in the past, haven't watched any of these in the past, it's what I normally do is have a little chat for about 10 minutes, and then I'll take questions. And most of the questions that guys and girls, people who want to ask, is about dowsing, because primarily the channel is using dowsing as an intuitive aspect of oneself, learning to connect through from your gut feelings, from your heart, through to everything, using dowsing as that way to access your spirituality, to your intuition. And what we don't get involved in here with is individual types of religion. We're talking about a generic aspect of being human that enables us to connect with heartfelt gratitude to the subtle aspects of our surroundings. Now, sometimes people refer to that as law of attraction type stuff. A lot of it, we touch on a lot of self-development work. And really where I'm coming from is I'm not really trying to teach anything new. What you'll find on this channel is quite similar to some other channels, but I come at it all from my own individual experience. And some of you will have seen, the chat live stream last week about my connection and how my spiritual path started, which was moving into a house and discovering that we had a guardian energy personality within that space. Jonathan, if you're beating yourself up hugely, drop me a line on my website, knightsrose.com, knightsrose.com. If you want to chat individually, privately, drop me an email there and we'll pick that up there. Okay. It's not worth beating yourself up about anything that we feel is kind of like sinning in under the eyes of God, right? I don't go along with that kind of perception or that way of living, because actually there's a lot of relief and a lot of healing that can be found through a connection with spirituality, but a lot of it comes from also knowing yourself, and that's really where we come to a lot on this. So briefly, before we get on to trust and truth, I just want to say I've got a couple of workshops running. So I'm starting running workshops from here in Yorkshire in the UK. If you're in the UK, you might like to come and visit here. I run them from my home as well as nearby. And in May, we're starting to talk about intuition and developing that link through with intuition, whether that takes a person on a course to meeting a spirit guide or not, that's up to the individual. But have a look on my website, www.knightsofrose.com. websites from here, or we are running them. I'm running jointly workshops based on the book Spirit and Earth, which I wrote with Adrian Inkwood and Webber. Those are being run in the south, doing one in June and one in September. Right, that's Lady K. Hello, hi, good to see you. Hello, Sally. Hi, yes, you've made it. So those are the workshops, that's the admin. Now look, I want to just talk about a little bit about trust and truth, and it sounds really heavy. But those of you that are regulars, you know, it's not that heavy really. Let's not get too bogged down in it all. But these aspects, both trust and truth, kind of link together really quite strongly in any path that you choose to follow of this sort. And really, because, you know, I remember in the early days, and I mean, again, not so recent, you know, not long ago, that when you speak to spirit or you speak to intuition and you get messages through, whether or not you're on a kind of a mediumship path or not, you kind of get information coming to you and you get hunches and you get kind of, you know, intuitive insights. And, you know, a lot of them one doesn't trust. One thinks, well, I'm just making this up. This is just redonkulous. Redonkulous. Hello, hi, the full Monty. All right, we're going to be talking about your Socrates. Hello, good to see you. Good to see you. So a lot of this, right, is we always feel that to start with, we're making it up, maybe making it up. It's imagination playing tricks with us and stuff, right? So trust is a huge thing that comes in. And actually, full Monty there has joined. And this actually is really based upon a question that he asked. And I was going to answer directly last week when I was talking about how it was that my life changed when I moved into the house and we met the spirit of the lady in that house, right? If you haven't, hello, Jackie, hi, hi. If you haven't seen that one, have a look at it. There'll be a link. I'll pop a link in the screen and link back to last week's, right? Because it's worth watching. But Voican, and I hope I'm saying it right or closer this time, he asked a question on an email, which was, I was wondering, when did you know for sure that you had contact with the other side or that you could trust your dowsing? Now, I know that Voican is a fairly, well, I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, you know, he's a, I can tell, I know that he's a really intuitive guy, right? But this question is such a great question because we all feel this. So I'm going to answer that directly. When did I know for sure that I had contact with the other side? And the bottom line is, which is going to really annoy quite a lot of you, the bottom line is probably only this year, right? I mean, my life started to change over 15 years ago. And excellent, well done, Lady K. And through all that time, since, you know, 15, 16, 20 years ago, whatever it is now, with the amount of insights, the amount of intuitive insights, the amount of contact, either with Jane, the lady in the house, or with my spirit guide, there have always been questions in my mind as to, well, how good was that connection? Was that really a connection through to spirit? The classic one is, that's just me making it up. Now, all of these questions actually are very healthy questions to have. And the 100% belief that I do have now is not necessarily in the certainty and the accuracy of a particular individual message, because quite often, you know, if I get Merthin coming through and speaking through me, as he does sometimes now, I know that I have a connection because of the way my body feels, and I can feel the energy coming in. Now, somebody like Lady K, who's extremely sensitive. Hello, Fee. Nice to see you. Joanne, you made it. Goodness me. Must be late down in Australia. When this comes through, I know from experience now that this is my guide, and that this is the connection that he establishes, that we have established. So I know that that's there, right? And I know that, as I said, what I was saying was that Lady Case, she's really sensitive, and somebody like her would know and probably lived with this sort of connection and this positivity right from, you know, when she was born, when she became aware of it, right? Now, people like Voiken and me, we have to work on it. We're working on developing the practice of the focusing method, as most of us do have to. You know, those of us that haven't been born with the natural gift, or been born, let's call it that for the time being, you know, or we haven't been born into a family where this sensitivity is kind of just generally discussed, and you know, maybe the mother and the father are open and sensitive and aware of all this stuff, then we have to work at it. And this is where the trust thing really does come in very strongly, because we are constantly questioning, and as we develop, and as we raise our vibration, and as we go through healing, the ego part of the self is always going to argue and always going to fight to try to retain everything in what it perceives as the status quo. Which, if you've got a pre-spiritual awakening, shall we say, within your life, then that's what the ego wants to stick with, because that's what it's happy with. Whereas the real self, the true self, the soul self, is eager to come through to the fore, and that's the intuitive aspect of self. Okay, so to be kind of frustrated by the question of, you know, when can I trust, when will I really know, that's kind of like a red herring, because it will always frustrate you. If you feel frustrated by that question, then you're always going to feel frustrated by it. And actually what you need to do is to sidestep those arguments with self, and really kind of put that judgment to one side, and allow the aspects of the fuller subtle realms to come through. And then, you know, and then each time you're building on trust and confidence. The psi wheel, yeah, I haven't looked at the psi wheel, Voiken, so no gift. Yeah, so the term gift, I actually think it's one that I should stop using, because I actually, part of my point is that everybody has the ability to open up to these subtle realms and to the spiritual aspect of self. So, but I suppose it's rather like a concert pianist. You know, everybody can play the, you know, if you sit down in front of a keyboard, everybody can make some kind of noise with it. Everybody gets some kind of connection. I suppose those that with the gift, as it has been called, are those that can sit down and instantly get a really good tune out of the keyboard. You know, I wasn't one of those. I could play chopsticks, and that's about the limit that I've got now anyway. So just Jonathan, spiritual awakening. Yeah, you're talking there about tingles in the body. So it may be that. I mean, again, it depends on how the tingles are coming to you, Jonathan, and really your these sort of questions, pop them in an email. I mean, I'd like to answer them now, but I'm going to get these to answer them properly. It's going to get really quite involved. Okay, so no, don't get caught up in it, Jonathan. It's not a bad thing, but I need to understand where you are with it all. Okay, so what I don't want you doing is getting wound up, getting caught in all these things, and I suggest drop me a line and then we can take it privately. It's going to be better for everybody else as well at the moment. Okay, so trust, yeah, for everybody, right? Everybody has the potential to open up and to learn from their intuition, and everybody is starting from an individual, separate place. So, and everybody will come at it from a slightly different angle, you know. And the fact is that you work with your intuition, and you go with your gut. And if you feel uncomfortable, then you don't go down that particular avenue, right? You just follow the things that you feel good with and that you feel comfortable about. You always have got the option to turn everything off and to close everything down. And there's plenty of information on with other videos on my channel about how to do those two things. So every single person's spiritual path is slightly different, and trust will always be a part of it, but you never play games with spirit or your intuition, because I know a lot of you won't even be interested in trying to contact a spirit personality as such, but some of you are interested in working with the universe, with reality, to create and to manifest, or to just simply get response from it. And you never play games with it, with the universe. You never I think there's a great sort of proverb or saying somewhere, is you don't tempt providence, you don't tempt fate, so you don't challenge as such, but certainly as you develop, you can ask questions of it, and you can ask to be shown things and to be shown a way forward, and you'll know if it's the right way forward for you as an individual. Okay, so trust is developed over time, and trust in your connection is developed over time. I'll answer that one in a minute, Voika. Yeah. And the other aspect to it is truth. And the reason that truth becomes an aspect of trust is because as we become more open to the subtle realms and things start to change in our life, then there are aspects of that changed reality that we have to be honest with ourselves about. And there is a temptation sometimes to start with because it can be so different to the norm, these experiences, to either kind of shout it from the rooftops, to also get carried away with it, to get concerned about it also sometimes. And so therefore a truth, if one is able to be open enough on an intuitive side to have the experience, it's actually then very useful to be able to step back from that experience and logically consider it. Now, that doesn't mean to say to put it through the mill and sort of analyze the heck out of it and say, well, actually, no, clearly it was just my imagination. That's not useful. But to sit back and logically say, what was that? How did that experience come to me? Did I feel anything different within the experience? And to also ask the question, what does it symbolically represent for me? Because a lot of life itself is symbolic. And in these questions, there needs to be a certain degree of honesty as well as openness. And quite often, as we start on the spiritual path, we actually find that we have been, in some areas of our life, actually not being truthful to ourselves about general day-to-day things, about how we feel about things, about circumstance, about what's going on in our lives, about how we react to things, to people, to situations. You know, there's all these things that we take for granted and we habitually do. And actually part of the healing process in life, as we open spiritually, these things, they come to us as an opportunity to reanalyze them, which is why sometimes when somebody goes through a spiritual awakening, which is an opening up and a change of perspective on one's life and beginning to see aspects of the bigger picture, then it's difficult to sort of assimilate these things, these changes. So honesty is and truth is a massively important ability to have, but it also stops us being delusional as well. You know, we have to have a clear, grounded, reflective practice on what new things are coming to us, because otherwise we can get caught up and swept away on that wave, or because, you know, That's the way it is. And really, this is partly why many of the major religions do actually try to persuade people from not opening spiritually, from not developing themselves spiritually, because there is the faint chance of it being a dangerous practice if you're opening. But you know, the thing that really I find galling is the danger of it is because it's not taught. You know, I mean, if churches taught spirituality and understanding one's true spiritual self, then there wouldn't be the danger in the process. Okay, and so what I find is that I get a lot of people contacting me and sharing their crisis, their spiritual crisis, if you like, and thinking that they were the only person on the planet that's had that sort of experience because they've been so scared to share it. And so this is the value partly of what we're doing here, is managing to share. Right. Okay, so I've whittled on. I'm going to now answer Full Monty's questions here. So have I tried the Ouija board? No, I haven't tried the Ouija board, Voikan. And one of the reasons I don't recommend the Ouija board, I can see that you've tried it, but one of the reasons I don't recommend it is because actually the process of sitting down, let's say there's 4 of you doing it, as far as I understand the way the Ouija board works, right? So if I'm sitting there with a board and the counter thing, the indicator, then what you're doing actually, as you open up anyway, you know, you open up spiritually, you open up your energy field, and there's 4 of you or more around that board, and you are basically standing on the street with your wallet saying, hello, anybody want this? And so that can be used as an opportunity by your spirit guide to protect you, or to give you a life lesson, to scare the bejesus out of you, any of the above. Basically, you're opening up without any knowledge of what you're doing energetically speaking, subtle realms energy wise. Okay, that's why I don't recommend Ouija board. However, you will have seen in the last video that what I did in trying to communicate with Jane, the spirit in my house, was that I drew out the alphabet and held the rod, and I described that in detail in that video, and held the rod, and because I thought that was a good way to communicate at that point with Jane, with the deceased lady, with the ghost. Now that was like using a Ouija board, because that was like having somebody on the end of that rod moving it and spelling out her name. And as I said in that video, it scared the living daylights out of me. So not really something I've ever got involved with. I think the thing is, you see, that what that did for you, Voikan, is you had an interest, as everybody does, in the spiritual aspect of life. And everybody, when we're growing up, you know, the idea that there might be something else there is in us, as innately in us, because it is a part of us. So at some stage, people like yourself are going to experiment with it. And, you know, the reaction is what the reaction is. Yeah, Joanne, you see, there you go. You tried it out when you were a kid with a friend, yeah, and it scared you. Yeah, stop doing it. Yes, okay, that's a good point. You see, Jane Roberts got contact with Seth through the board. Well, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. It's horses for courses. And I think we all get curious. I think you know, you see, I couldn't have had, and again, this is not about me, this is about all of us, but I couldn't have had my process couldn't have happened by sitting down at a Ouija board, because I would never have accepted it. So the subtle realms came to me through the method that it came to me, because it was appropriate to me, and you have come to it through the method that's appropriate for you. Stupidity, well, yeah, no, I mean, it's suitable, you know. Voikan, Full Monty doesn't describe there. You might want to say what happened, if you can do so in a sentence, Voikan. But I don't know, you know, I'm assuming that it wasn't a scary experience for him. I think, you know, it's more, from my point of view, as doing this and working with house healing and working with some people that are quite badly affected by what we can only consider to be detrimental energies affecting them and affecting their health, then I certainly don't advocate using that sort of system. Got some true answers. Well, there you go. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So for you, the Ouija board, Boykin, was a bit like learning to dowse for me. So, and I know that you're playing with the dowsing, or experimenting with the dowsing now. So see how that goes. And if you're interested in, if you were interested in the Ouija board at that point, then that's suggesting that you may be open to personality in spirit, So actually learning to speak with and have conversation with, yeah, that's fine, Boykin, that's fine, good. Put some more detail in an email and stuff, or on Facebook. But if you're interested in finding the personality in place, then I think Boykin, you individually might well be quite capable of doing that, and quite. I mean, everybody can do it. It's just whether it's a question of, it's a question of choice. A lot of people don't like the idea of speaking to spirit because that's a kind of a bit scary as well. So and the big thing is that all of this kind of trust and truth and all of this, as I said earlier, doesn't have to be applied to talking to spirit as a spirit entity. It can be, just applied in learning to live life just slightly differently, looking at life differently and looking at what is manifest in your life and how you reply and how it replies to your presence. So it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, very, very good. So does that make sense about truth and trust, or in the aspect that we've sort of covered here? Lady K, I use Black Mirror that I crafted, love scrying. Oh yeah, so is that with the moon? Yeah, Joanne, I understand that was when you were a kid. Yeah, that was fine. No, I get that. So Denise, okay, Denise, that's a good question. Has connection with spirit ever come and gone? We'll talk about Merlin in a minute. We can. Yeah, so the connection with spirit. So from my personal point of view, basically the progress through was meeting the spirit lady, using dowsing to communicate over a long period of time. My interest then was in trying to improve my clairvoyance, to try to improve the way of communicating with such personalities, finding that, massive path of learning in terms of spiritual sites, sacred sites, and power of place and all this stuff. But I wanted to improve my connection so that I didn't have to waggle around with a couple of rods. And so we'll talk about trust developing with Merlin in a minute, and clairvoyance. So I learned to be in touch with my spirit guide, and that's a longer story than I've got time for right now. But in learning to communicate with him, Merlin, that relationship has gone in different levels. So when one has a spirit guide, there's a great kind of, it's like, this is amazing. So you have this really close relationship for a little while. And if you don't want to continue it and use it on a day-to-day basis like a medium, a spirit medium would, if you're confident and you're happy and you've got the ability to bring through messages via your spirit guide for other people, then you might be drawn to doing clairvoyance, doing mediumship readings and this sort of thing. And in which case you'll develop a really, really close and really solid and really trusted relationship with your guide, because every time you sit with somebody, you'll be listening to them or feeling the information that's coming through from them, and you'll be practicing and using it every single day. Now with Merlin, I was never going to be like a medium, like a channel, okay, in terms, like big time. I mean, in terms of using it for other people, using it for helping, for healing, in that sense, because I'm, as a person, as a human being, I was going to say as a hermit, I am a hermit. I'm very much an introvert, and the pressure of providing information for people with a clear enough channel, for me as an individual human being, wasn't sitting happily with me. I tried it for a bit and I wasn't happy with the information I was getting. So the relationship with Merlin kind of changed. And if you look back at the video from a couple of weeks ago when I went to a sacred site called Long Meg, you'll see at the end of that video that Merlin actually comes through, and he does that. I mean, his presence is here right now, but I'm not really using his presence because actually, quite frankly, these sort of lives get me too hyper to allow him to come through. If I calm down a bit and I focused and I was a bit more confident with all you and the tech, then he was more likely to come to the fore because I would be allowing him to come to the fore more. So the relationship changes, and it will be again unique to each individual because of, you know, you're working with all the time in this. I can't stress enough that you're working with your individual connection. Think of it like, you know, when astral travel is discussed, or certainly used to be, there would be talk of the silver cord that you should never cut, you'd never lose. Hi, thanks, T.A. Alon, that's great. You should never lose this silver cord connection. Now, if you think about your connection to creation as being like that silver cord, right? I'm not saying it is that cord. I'm saying it's, if you think of it like that, then everybody has their own individual connection through. Now, I'm making this kind of movement here from up to upstairs, but in a way it should be from the thyroid gland, which actually goes out that way as the third eye, really, coming through there. Pineal gland, sorry, pineal, not thyroid, pineal gland. But so the relationship that we have with the subtle realms is entirely unique. We share a lot of facets of it in the same way as we share the world, the objective world. You know, we all share facets of that. And so we share enough information when we're interacting with spirit and that subtle realms world, or the universe, when we're manifesting, to be able to communicate about it and share ideas about it. But the actual nuances of each individual connection between the individual human being and the spirit world, intuition, their intuitive self, is unique. Okay. So, how did I develop the trust with Merlin? Yeah, okay, so, yeah, I know. He was your favourite magical figure when young. Yeah, I saw the video when you filmed your aura. Oh, yeah, that was the first time he spoke. Yeah. I haven't tried lucid dreaming, but it's an interesting one, and I'd quite like to, that reminds me, I must, yeah, we might touch on some lucid dreaming a little bit more. There is a guy called Charlie Morley. If you haven't encountered him yet, he's a UK-based guy. He uses lucid dreaming in therapy work, healing work, particularly in relation to post-traumatic stress disorder. So you can Google Charlie Morley. Yeah, he's quite an interesting guy. So, and he's been practicing lucid dreaming for many, many decades, or a couple of decades. So my relationship with Merlin, trust developed there over a period of time. The video that you saw was when the aura was being filmed was fairly early on in the process. I had never allowed him, or never been enabled to speak his words through me. And that particular video, that little video, I'll dig it out and put a link on the screen here, is oh, hi, how are you doing? Thoughts and perceptions out loud, good to see you. That particular video is somewhere on the channel, and that was the first time that I allowed Merlin to talk through me, or enabled. I was sufficiently confident to allow him to come through. Now, the thing about that is, before that, I had been practicing with the way he felt, right? So his energy coming close to my energy, because what we were talking about in that instance is dealing with trance energy. And that is where it's different to giving a clairvoyant reading, to picking up information from a person through spirit, through intuition, because all of that is keeping the energy out there. Trance work, which does require a very specific process to learn to do, to be safe, because you actually invite the spirit energy, the personality energy, into this space. Now, yes, you would think that that was sort of physical proof, but you see, this is the power of the ego self saying, well, okay, I can feel these feelings, but my imagination makes up these feelings. And then you go, you know, then Merlin talks through, thanks, Nancy. Cheers. You know, you sit in trance, having got this whole this feelings coming through, and all these words come out, and as part of the trance mediumship process, me, Tim Walter, sort of sits in the body and listens to what is being said and is going, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's right. That's really interesting. And then feel the energy going back out again, right? And so you would think it's irrefutable proof to yourself, but you don't. You sit there and you think, oh, I just made that up. That's pretty impressive. Ego, right? I mean, that is ego, right? Because it is. It's really funny because you know, the management must be driven up the twist by us when they encounter a stubborn receptacle, because we take so much convincing. And Merlin actually was at one point early on in the process, when I used to meditate really deeply and try to connect to his energy just to get used to that feeling. And I did this for months and months, every day, if not twice a day, to really work on feeling his energy, his presence, and to get really familiar with that energy, so that I would allow him to come into this space, because I don't want any old unknown to come into my energy, because the great fear of all of this spirit work, of this, you know, particularly with trance mediumship, is that you're allowing some rogue imp into your space, and that's where you're gonna get trouble. One is asking for trouble if you don't go through the right process, you know. And as he himself has said, you know, this work is not for everybody. And I'm not saying that makes me special. What I'm saying is you just have to be careful, right? So I think I've made the point. Link the aura video. Yeah, I'll do that. Dan, yeah. If you're doused to find your guardian or guide and I get a no or just nothing, is it my intention or am I not ready to know? Well, okay, boy, I'll answer that one in a sec. But Dan, yeah. So don't forget the really important thing with dowsing is how you phrase the question. So with something like this, if you want to find your spirit guide, right? Okay, so you're going to have one. You're going to have a guide there, because we all do, at whatever stage of life we are. You know, even from being a toddler with an imaginary friend, it's quite likely that the imaginary friend is their spirit guide and will be with them. You know, now we actually all have several guides, and a different one will come to the fore for a different purpose and a different time of life. So what I'm getting at is, if you douse, Dan, ask the question first off. Ask the question as to whether it's an appropriate time in your life to contact your guide, or for your guide to come to the fore in your life. Ask the question, get a yes or no. If they say no, then okay, that's fine. Accept it for the time being. Ask if they're willing to give you a clue or give you an indication of how long or when in your life it might be appropriate, if you really want it. And judging by the question, I assume that you do. So, oh, sorry, I can't translate that. I don't know how to translate that, Vladimir. Maybe that's spam, I don't know. Sorry, but there we go. Hiya, Jody, tarot reader, fantastic. Okay, thanks, Jody, for that. So what I'm saying, Dan, is ask the questions. Think about how you're asking questions, and think about when you're dowsing, think that you're asking the universe of how to progress. And so don't just kind of think vaguely, or maybe there's a spirit guide there, and have a pendulum and wait for it. You know, specifically ask the question. Also, if you want to, and if you think you're going to do more of this kind of work, do the psychic protection exercise. There's I'll put a link in again, as long as I remember, but if I don't put a link in, I'll put it into the text below in the comment section to have a look at that, and just get in the habit. If you're going to do this sort of work, it doesn't really matter so much with dowsing, but as you develop, just have it in the habit and have it in your toolkit, so that you are in the habit of protecting yourself. It's basic, fundamental energy protocol, working with energy protocol, so that you just get in the habit of protection. Think protection, think protection. It's like bubbling up, but this is like a chakra protection exercise. Okay, so dowsing does require practice. So coming back up to how did my family react to the new dad and husband? Well, the thing was, when Merlin started to come through, and once I'd got through that particular aura video escapade, episode, not escapade, then I was developing confidence in allowing him into my energy. So what would happen would be, in an evening, as we were relaxing with a glass of wine or whatever, sometimes I could feel Merlin coming close, and so I would just allow him to come in and talk. And again, this is another example of how ego convinces us that it's just imagination, because, as I say, I would sit there and listen to what was being said from my own mouth, and then he would go away again, and I would ask repeatedly, Nikki and the boys, depending on who was present. My boys at that time would have been in their early 20s, so they weren't always around. They were at uni and things like that, university and things like that. But I would ask them, I'd say, you know, well, did that just seem like me? Because I'm not really, you know, not sure about this. And they were like, no. Because what tends to happen is that when somebody goes into trance, and I've seen it with other people, seen it with other mediums, then the whole energy of the space changes. There's a real gravitas that actually the person doesn't feel, as an observer to somebody going into trance, the energy of the person doesn't seem like the same energy of the person. It's like having a different person in the room. And because you're dealing with spirit energy, the energy of the person is larger. There's more. I don't know how best to describe it. It's just very different. And sometimes it can be a little alarming if you're not, if the people in the room aren't prepared for it, because there's a very distinct shift in the energy of the space. So full Monty answer to your question. Yeah, that's how they went with it. You know, they understood what was going on. They knew that I was practicing, and they actually found it quite frustrating that I took so long to be convinced that there was a shift in energy and all that sort of stuff. So that's how that kind of went. Yes, indeed, Lady K, that's right. And indeed, yes, it can. Yes. So you need to know. Hi, Carol. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? You see that it is really important to do the fundamentals, and this is why I was saying to Dan, as a dowser, dowsing itself is the safest way of accessing any of this spiritual subtle realm energy. Okay, I mean it is, because it's so close to the human responses. When we get into the trance work, that's a very different kettle of bananas. So you know, but it's good to put the basic practice of protection in place right to start with, so that when you move on your path, you've got the kit there to protect yourself. And equally for dowsers going into a sacred site, right? Now, these are called sacred sites for a reason, because they're powerful, subtle realms energy. So, you know, a dowser walking into a sacred site without any psychic protection on, because they think it's a clever thing to do to allow, or to, I want to experience this space in its fullness, and then you get clobbered by some mischievous little imp. That's not a healthy thing. That's not sensible. That's just daft. So the protection is a filter, and it's a filter. It's an effective filter because it works on the principle of the way that we manifest reality, that we experience reality. We are using the subtle realm energy, which is the energy of creation, and we're using it as a filter. Get into a dowsing trance. That's okay. So what technique do you use to go into a dowsing trance? It's a meditation, Voikan. and again, with practice, you see, it's part of that relationship that you have with your guide. So it gets to a stage where it's like having a friend all the time. The friend is always there, or the friend is always at the end. You know how, you can pick up a mobile and phone anybody, right? Having the guide there is like that. They're not there all the time. Well, for me, this is the way it works. Some, I mean, Jodie might feel differently, but Merlin is not there and present all the time. But I know that I can drop into meditation, or even just be driving, like driving to the sacred site. 10 minutes out away from arriving at that sacred site, he was making his presence felt, and he was talking to me. So he was just dropping in and saying, okay, I'd like to say some things while we're there. And so if I want to speak to him, then I go into meditation and I ask him to be present, and I ask him to come forward. But you see, again, instantly, right? Instantly, I'm going into your head thinking, well, can't he come through now? And I'm thinking, no. And the reason not is because I'm not that type of person. If I was, the performers, right? Extrovert, natural extroverts. I stand in awe of performers because of their ability to perform and the amount of energy that they can gain from performing. That's how they get their energy. It's a great buzz. Now, I know there are introvert actors and all of that, that's part of their skill as an actor. But I'm kind of making excuses maybe, but yeah, I can't bring him through to order in that sense. Okay, so just visiting a graveyard once, I went under a possession, was very draining. Yeah, okay, yeah, well, that would be too. You do quite well. Well, that's on video. That's on video, though, Voican. You see, I mean, that's different. When that was recorded, I was in a sacred state, and there was a load of energy around, so that was great. Just reading the one from Jodie. Good. I'm glad you went to Michael's Mount. Yeah, St. Michael's Mount's a beautiful place, and it's really lovely, and yeah, it's a lovely place. I'm glad that worked for you. That's really good. So yeah, okay. So we're going to have to start drawing this to a close. Let's go for another 4 minutes. That'll make it 4:20. Again, I tried to keep these to about half an hour, but it's never going to work, is it really, to be honest, because I talked for about 20 minutes to start with anyway. So any sort of last questions from anybody? It doesn't matter whether it's particularly on this sort of aspect that we've been discussing, or on anything else from the channel is absolutely fine. Bearing in mind there's quite a lot of yeah, okay, Lady K, thank you. Yeah, popping for apples. No, that's fine. You carry on, Jodie. You bombard away. It's great. At least, between you and Voican, that's great. No, seriously, it is good. I mean, it's lovely that 23 of you were involved. Yeah, great. What I'm hoping to do, you see, the thing is that, I like it when we've only got about 20, this sort of number of people, because actually it enables me to say the pieces that I need to say. Okay, Jean-Francois, I'll talk about that in a sec. Enables me to say what I want to say, but also to answer the questions. And if we've got a lot more, which I guess we will over time, then it's going to be pretty tricky to kind of keep up. Right, Jean-Francois, how many spirits do you have in your team? Well, team is an interesting use of the word, because when I'm doing the house healing work, then it is very much a case of asking the team to do the work. That healing team is very different to how many spirit guides I feel that I have. And I suppose if I answer that aspect to it, then Merlin is the main man that's present for me. Jane, okay, right, Jane, the spirit of the house that we used to live in. Long story-ish, but she is present with me now. She's also part of the healing team, but she's present around on the left-hand side. She comes through to the left. Usually female spirits come from the left, and Male spirits come on from the right. Okay, general rule of thumb. Angelic energy kind of comes straight down from the top. So answer your question, Merlin, Jane, and that really, to be honest, those are the two that are kind of present, or I feel are contactable. There are others. There are ancestor guides, but everybody, you know, everybody has several spirit guides that they can call on. And so you've always got at least one that is there to help you. And there's a very faint and very subtle distinction between the voice, if you're inclined to hear the voice, between the voice of your spirit guide and your own inner voice, the own inner voice that you have when you're reading a book, for example. There's a very fine, distinct, kind of little subtle difference between the voices. Yeah, okay, thanks, Jodie. So it's that little subtleness. Don't get wound up and stressed by looking for that subtleness, because when it comes through, you will spot it. And with a lot of this stuff, it is actually about, and this is part of that truth as well, just for the final minute here, just touching on that truth. Thank you, Denise, that's kind. The truth, being honest to yourself, part of that is actually recognizing when there is a subtle difference in a feeling of information coming to you, because there is in a lot of these things. We start out kind of wishing for a contact, or you know, wishing for something to change or to be a little sign, and then they come through. And when they come through, it's important to see that they come through, and to recognize that, oh, I didn't feel quite the same, and to recognize where that feels. Yes, it is, Dan. Muscle testing, kinesiology, that is kind of like a form of dowsing, for sure. Okay, Lady K, please define trance medium one more time, the difference between that and how they work through you. Okay, so, right. Okay, well, I can only define it as, excellent, good, go for those dowsing rods, Jodie. The difference between trance and clairvoyance, or perceiving clairsentiently or audio through hearing, right? Let's go through those briefly. Clairvoyance is seeing things. Okay, you're getting information through your senses, but primarily through the visual sense. So you may see somebody's spirit guide standing behind them, right? I don't, but you may. Or you may clairaudiently hear a spirit guide talking to you as you're talking to somebody else, or they just say, I need to give this person information. Or you may feel it, sentience, clairsentience. Trance mediumship. And I stress, you do need to go through a specific process to learn to do it safely. Don't please go off and try it unless you feel confident that you are safe, because trance mediumship is when you allow a specific energy guide, usually to start with, for sure, your spirit guide, to come into your energy field and speak through you. So the energy of the spirit uses your physical capabilities. Now, in the old times, it would progress from trance mediumship to physical mediumship, where supposedly, now I say supposedly, and I use the word advisedly, because I have no direct experience of physical mediumship. So I have to say supposedly, or I understand that the physical characteristics of a person would change to suit the spirit that was actually within the person. So back a step, trance mediumship is allowing the energy of the person. So I allow the energy of Merlin, and I can feel it coming into my space, comes through my aura, and I can feel it on the outskirts of my body, tingling, and then it just comes right through and sits here, and then changes. And I have to take a back seat. I have to get out of his way as he comes in. And the skill of that trance mediumship is in allowing the continuation of the link into Merlin's energy rather than mine. Okay, that's the challenge of it all. Jodie, okay, okay, yeah. I'm going to visit some spiritual locations across England. Can you please send me some suggested places where you can get time? Ooh, maybe, Jodie. Send me, I say maybe because actually you'll be led to the ones that you need, but I'll make some suggestions for sure. David, ever a time when you felt that you've been abandoned by your guides? or the Great Spirit that your prayers for guidance or help unanswered? That's a good one. Yeah, okay. So have I ever felt that? Well, I mean, I'm making an assumption that you have felt that. So let me just answer your question. That's okay, boy, Ken. Right, David, back to your question. Have you ever felt that they've been abandoned by guides or the Great Spirit? Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, right? Because I haven't felt that. In all honesty, I haven't personally felt that. I have felt that maybe I wasn't being effective enough at getting guidance. Now, that's a slightly different emphasis, isn't it? Because what we're saying is we've got us as a human being as the channel, and we've got the guide. Let's say the great guide, as you use, the Great Spirit. So I have tended to be self-deflating. I haven't blamed them. There is a tendency that we can all sometimes go into where we blame them and we argue and we fight and we rail against the universe for saying, why aren't you listening? Why is it like this? And you know, when those times happen, then actually, although it's really, really, really difficult, and that's part of the healing path, is you have to stop being in that sense of railing against and fighting against, and actually stepping back out and asking the questions of yourself with honesty, to look at what is it you're asking for, what is it you're railing against, what is it that you're actually believing the universe isn't giving you, right? Those are all the negatives, maybe. And look at them symbolically, or look at your life situation symbolically, or the things in your life that are symbolic, that are really pissing you off. Because if you look at them symbolically, and I mean, we're over time, but I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by that. Yeah, great, thanks. Yeah, past tea time for sure, Lady K. I've got to sign off, but I just want to give David this last thing about looking at things symbolically, right? Little example, and it's a stupid example, but it's a great example, which was that I did a job when I was still making video programs for clients, corporate clients. I did a job for an agency, and the agent said, okay, we're going to allow you and your crew onto this particular exhibition stand. I want you to, if they ask, to tell these people that you're part of our team, that you work for us, right? Okay, so yeah, re-listen. Okay, so so we did this job, right? And we did this, and then after the thing, I thought, well, I'll contact that client, right? And because I can sell them my services as a production company. And this is exactly what my direct client, the agency, has said don't do. I honestly do not know why I decided that this would be a good idea to make contact with this other client, but I did. And oh, hell broke loose because I'd done that. And obviously, I mean, I lost the agency as a client. It was a stupid thing to say. What happened very, very soon, about the day after I'd done that, after I'd really put my foot in it with my client, the agency client, I stepped into an outhouse and literally kicked over a paint pot that was sitting just by the door. And I literally stepped in it. I stepped in this paint, and there was footprint across the outhouse, you know, the floor of the outhouse. And I just looked at this and thought, yeah, I did. I really put my foot in it. An instance, a stupid instance, but a real classic instance where I realized how symbolically life can represent the mess that we make in our heads and the actions that we go through. So look at your life. Take each chunk of your life that's really pissing you off or getting you down, or you feel that things are not working. Look at it. What does it represent? What's it symbolically telling you? And what is it that the universe, that you're expecting of the universe? And what are you asking of the universe? And are you actually asking of the universe something they're already giving you, but you just can't see it? That's a good one. You know, that happens a lot. Okay, so Dixie, you're awake. Dear God. Okay, I'm going to have to go now. Carol, last one. Yeah. Yeah, okay then. So that's it. I can't respond to any more questions on the chat. That's brilliant, really lovely. Thank you very much for being there. I do just want to say, it's unlike me to give little plugs and stuff, but I have to start doing this. And you understand that I mentioned a house healing course a little while ago that I was going to put online. Okay, yeah, back to sleep, Dixie. Good boy. Good man. I say boy. Why would I say boy? Kettle of bananas, yeah. And so the house healing course, I'm working on it, right? I'm working on this house healing course that will be online, but it's going to take some time. In the meantime, I have been starting to do one-to-one mentoring as part of the one-to-one work that I do on Skype or Zoom with people. And if they want to go to the house healing, then that's what we start to discuss. So in May, if you want to, drop me a line via my contact form on the website, because I have got 3 places that I can open up for one-to-one mentoring, because I do limit the number of people I work with one-to-one, because obviously this YouTube thing takes a couple of days of my week. I need to be doing the house healing work because that's how I earn my living. And so therefore I have to limit the amount of work that I do, because I just can't fit everything in. That's a lesson learned. So if you want to be, send me a mail via the contact form on my website if you're interested in, and doesn't matter if you're just making an inquiry. It's useful to know, and there's no obligation. So just there you go. Right, I will see you next week, same time, and bless you all. Thank you very much. See you next time then. Take care. Just going to turn this off, which is that bit there. Okay, see you next time.